dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs eat man. Woman inherits the earth.
The body of this mammoth was found perfectly preserved in the Siberian tundra, with food still in its mouth and stomach, indicating that it froze instantly while grazing.
After all, in your absence, someone had to take command.
So disappointing. Even in death, there is no command but mine.
We were there. At this point, I saw a very, very, again, unusual thing with this man's hand, this agitation. I got very frightened, and something spoke inside of my stomach and said to me, "Get out of here as fast as you can." And I began to think, oh my goodness, it is the end of the world now. It is really the end of the world. At this point, I began to run to my house as fast as I could. While I was running, I want to read to you what I heard in my spirit. I didn't know it was my spirit at that time. If you have a Bible, if you want to turn there tonight, I'll read very quickly from Revelation 13. I didn't know these were scriptures. I was hearing this inside of my stomach. Now, again, I didn't know what the stomach did at that time. Now I know that's where your spirit man lives. Out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. He causes all, verse 16, chapter 13 of Revelations, he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, to receive a mark in their right hand or their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell, save he hath the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of man. That number is 666, okay? Or, yeah, 666. Now, I'm running as fast as I can back to my house because I'm realizing, oh my gosh, my wife is there. She's alone. I'm getting to my house. Another scripture jumps into my heart. Didn't know it. It was from Matthew 24 about the abomination of desolation. I reached to the doorknob. I began to pull the door open, even though that scripture was telling me, don't go into your house, don't return. I opened it up to see the most demonic presence I've ever seen. This presence that I encountered at my front door as I opened the door, I can't tell you that it was the devil himself. He was very dark. There was a shroud of black around him. It wasn't like say, an African-American skin or anything like that. It wasn't skin that was dark. It was a shroud of darkness that was over this being. This being was very sinister looking, and just his presence gripped my heart with great fear. At this point, I began to scream as loud as I could, and I woke up from the dream. As I woke up, I was laying in a pool of perspiration. I literally had a silhouette of my body in the bed, and I shook my wife, and I said, something terrible is happening to me, and I think God is trying to tell me something. And so I told her a few things about what had happened, and she said, no, you're just having a nightmare. And, I got to tell you, I knew this was no nightmare. I've had nightmares. How many of you had nightmares? This was not a nightmare. There's no way. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I think it was about 10:30 at night when I fell asleep. This had been going for several hours, and I felt a real strong urging to read the Bible, even though I didn't even know if I owned a Bible. I began to search in my garage for a Bible. I eventually found a Bible. It said Holy Bible, St. Joseph Catholic Edition. And I don't even know where I got it. I opened the inside cover, and it said Property of St. Francis School and Church. I don't know how it got to my house. I don't honestly remember stealing the Bible, but I guess I must have, because I had it. I went back into the house. I sat down in a rocking chair and began to read this Bible with diligence. I have a real habit in my life to always flip to the back of things, and I flipped to the back of the Bible, and it said apocalypse. I have to tell you, I don't know what apocalypse meant at the time. I had no idea what it meant. I began to read, and all I could get out of what I was reading was that Jesus was going to come to his church and take away their candles. As a Catholic, that was very frightening to me, because everything we did was with candles. You had an Advent candle, a Lent candle, a Easter candle, a Christmas candle. You lit candles on the platform. Everything. You had purgatory candles. Everything was candles. And so it made no sense to me. And I fell asleep, and instantly the dream began to start exactly where it left off, me facing this very sinister creature. I think the creature was a demon, some sort of a demon presence. It was very, very intense, and it gripped my heart. I slammed the door and ran off. I realized that my wife, in fact, wasn't in my home and that she was gone. I knew that by this presence. It's just hard to tell you how afraid I was. I've had a few experiences in my life with demons and witches manifesting in my hotel rooms, and astral projecting into soulish realm into my house, and I've learned how to combat those kind of things. I'm not afraid of that anymore. They don't usually fool with me anymore, because I know how to pray now. But at this time, I had no comprehension of how to deal with this strong evil being. And so I began to run, and I ran and ran and ran. I seemed to believe in my mind, in the dream, I ran a couple miles. And I got caught by one of these strange-looking police trucks, by these military police. They knew my name. Even though I didn't tell them my name, they knew my name. And they took me to this government building. It was a large building, and took me into a room, and there was my wife and the older gentleman that I began to call the evangelist. They had been captured, and they knew exactly where to take me. That was very astounding to me, because I wondered, how did they know all this stuff about me?
I start to follow it, and to my surprise, I run into a creature that terrified me.
Officer Leonardo Samaniego was tailing a robbery suspect on the streets of Monterrey when he had an experience that still haunts his dreams.
I see something like a black bag falling down on me when I pass under the tree. I step on the brakes and see a silhouette.
Samaniego quickly realized it was something unimaginable.
When it stands up in front of me, I stop the car and first of all, try to make out what it is.
What he saw appeared female, but didn't seem human.
She starts to hide from the light. She closed her eyes. She had completely black eyes, but I couldn't see any eyelids or anything. She does this, and then quickly turns to face me. I can see that the hat she's wearing goes down like this, as if it were tied down. When she comes down on her back, she doesn't touch the ground and she's like this, with her arms open. She comes down, and that's when I ask for backup.
Samaniego frantically radioed for help as the creature ominously floated towards him, ready to attack.
She starts walking. I put the car in reverse. When I arrive at the street corner, I hear her crash against the windshield. And then I see her like this, and I move back, scared. I didn't know what to do.
Samaniego was knocked unconscious by the flying creature during his encounter.
Later, another officer found me and woke me up. They say that she slapped me 3 times. I don't know. I wasn't aware of anything then.
For many months afterwards, the memory of this creature's face gave the officer nightmares.
Still, every night, I was dreaming about those eyes. With my eyes closed, I could still see her gaze and her face, all of this and her eyes. Her eyes were very present and very, very black. I used to get scared, and I used to wake up scared and crying.
Asustado, llorando.
Even more shocking than Samaniego's account is the fact that there may be video evidence to prove it. In the skies above Santa Monica, California, a bulky humanoid shape is reported floating over this wealthy Los Angeles suburb. Here, a dark, human-like form is seen above craggy peaks near Monterrey, Mexico, close to Samaniego's encounter. Further to the south in Mexico City, several airborne humanoids are filmed drifting above this metropolis of 22 million people. This strange phenomenon has been reported across North America, with similar objects reported in the skies above Arizona, Wisconsin.
As soon as these people disappeared, for a lack of words, wherever they went, mass hysteria began to hit the earth. People had the appearance of absolute despair, hysteria. There was pandemonium everywhere. There was mass chaos. Lawlessness and fear was working everywhere. I was able again to see in many quadrants of the earth, and there wasn't any one nation that was under this. All of the globe was experiencing this. As the mass pandemonium and despair began to permeate society, there was a very unusual event that happened. Television, telephone, radio, and this other unusual communication device I was able to see into many, many homes in the United States, these white boxes that were about this big that looked to be like televisions. And when I saw these, they were in nearly every single home in the U.S. And they would have words written across them, and occasionally it would almost look as though television was playing through them. All of those media devices were shut down for about a 2-week period. I know now that what I was seeing was personal computers in people's homes. All these things were shut down. One of the things that was happening during this hysteria was many people were asking, where did these people go? What happened? And all the globe saw this event, or they experienced it afterwards. What I saw in people was that literally nearly everyone I experienced had a great look of despair and hopelessness upon their face. Everywhere I went, there was hopelessness. Nobody seemed to be happy about living. You know, I've never experienced that. I've been to a lot of public places where people are bummed out, not happy, not doing well, but not the globe in masses. I don't know, maybe you've seen that. I haven't. So this hysteria brought a complete hopelessness and total perplexity to just about everyone. The television communications were down for a period of time. This shutdown alarmed all of the peoples. and it lasted for about 2 weeks. Can you imagine briefly tonight all of your communications, your telephone, computers, television, and radio being shut down for a 2-week period of time? Can you imagine the hysteria? Can you imagine, you know, the inability for a supermarket to contact its suppliers to get more supplies, or gasoline, or transactions? I mean, it's amazing when you begin to see it kind of unfold, the depth. This lasted about 2 weeks. Again, I want to remind you, I was not a prophecy studier or expert at this time when this vision came to me. I began to walk the streets in shock at the current events. The events are difficult to describe because lawlessness and fear was permeating society completely. After about 2 weeks of time, television and radio began to be back up and running. However, it was completely different than what was previously being broadcast. The broadcasts were being bombarded nearly everywhere, and they were depicting a soon-to-come new government and leadership. A man would be emerging to lead us. The man finally came on the scene, and he spoke with great eloquence. I wrote these things down exactly as I saw them. He spoke with great eloquence and charisma. He was soothing and promised answers to all current issues. This man was smooth and extremely convincing, able to solve nearly all problems. He was a consummate communicator, and he explained how this removal of people was God's judgment upon them.
Oh, look at that rainbow. Oh, shit, baby, it's me. She must say it. It's a rainbow. Oh, yes. Oh, look. It's a rainbow, blue. Yeah.
Ay na, ay na.
Look at that.
Dali na, kunta ko ya. Kapalak kay kali na.
Hindi na makara yan. Magtawag, ini sa tubig.
Paano? Ayan, tapos na! Diyanan! Malas!
Ha? Tuluyan ang mawawala ang tempo.
Secret lies.
And the Lord took me to a place where there was a man that was well known. Like back then, when like me and a friend were attending church and living a double life in the walk with God. And I would think that all of them that would die would go to heaven. That every person that were there at the services would go to heaven. But I was very wrong. when the Pope John Paul II died, my
During the 1700s and 1900s in Europe and in the United States, the Smithsonian began massive excavations of great burial chambers. These numerous serpent mounds contained massive-sized skeleton remains of gigantic heights and proportions. Many of the burial remains contain artifacts, weapons, and armor. All throughout the world, in various countries and cultures, people have found similar burial sites. The origins of giants and beastly creatures are rooted from the fallen angels, but have been adopted and changed throughout the world's diverse cultures.